In today's video, we are creating the popular hourly weekly layout. I'll be walking you through creating two different versions and then jazzing one of those versions up a bit with our doggy theme. There are many more ways that you could create an hourly weekly layout, but hopefully I'm going to show you enough in this video so that you have a strong foundation and a good starting point to create your own design. So let's go ahead and jump into InDesign and get started. So of course, the first thing we do is create a new parent page spread. So we're going to come over here to our parent pages and click the plus. And then we are going to right click parent options and rename it. We're just going to name this hourly one and hit OK. So I'm going to start over here on the right page. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a table. So come up to table, create table, and we are going to make this 29 rows and 1 column. I am going to drag this out to be about 1.5 wide by 8 inches high. That's what I want, 1.5. So 1.5 by 8. I am going to go ahead and select this table. All right, so I'm going to use my cell style that we created in episode 5 for lines, just to get our thinner lines and to get rid of our vertical lines because we do not need those right now. The next thing we are going to do is, again, select the table and we are going to adjust the height. So we're going to right click, go to cell options, rows and columns, and I'm going to make this exactly 7 millimeters. Now what we want to do is we want to type in our times. I am going to, with the whole table still selected, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to say 8 point is what I'm going with. I'm going to go with my Adorn Roman because that's what I've been using. And I'm going to go with my 70% black. Also, select again. I want these aligned to the bottom, so to make sure that that's the case, I'm going to go to Cell Options, Text, and we have it currently aligned top. I want it to be aligned bottom. If you prefer the look of it being centered, you can do that as well. But we're going to go with a line bottom. And we want to keep it to the left. So we should be good now. I'm going to hit caps because I want to do my AM, PM in capitals. But this is up to you. You can add the AM, PM. You could not. You could just do the numbers if you want to as well. We're going to do 7 AM to 9 PM. That's what should fit in here. But I'm only going to type. I'm not going to type the half an hour. So basically, these are half-hour slots, but I'm not going to type 7:30, 8:30. You know, that's not necessary. So we're just going to do every other row. We're going to type in the time. So I'll finish this off, and I will be right back. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I want the rounded corners because that goes with the rest of the planner. So what I need to do to fit this in there so it doesn't look weird is I'm going to get rid of this top line to make it a little bit easier. So you're going to highlight the first one, and with only the top line selected here, we're going to change this to a 0 point. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the bottom. And I'm going to highlight the bottom, except for we are going to select the bottom stroke, and we are going to change that to 0. So now the next step is going to be to create our box. Because for tables, you can't round the corners. And that's really the only reason why I'm putting it in the frame. But because if you just wanted the lines thicker or something like that, you could go ahead and just do that on the table. But I'm going to, I want to keep things the same throughout the planner. So we're going to come over here to our rectangle tool, and I'm going to make this 1.5 wide by 8 high. Click OK. And now I am going to apply our object style for boxes, so we have our round corners. Now the only thing left to do is to copy and paste this into the box. So with the table selected, we are going to hit Command C. Then you're going to select our box, and we are going to come up to Edit and paste into. Okay, so that's it. That's in our box. That's rounded corners. That is our day, our hourly day. So of course, the next thing to do is to make copies of this. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to click hold. I'm holding Option and Shift, or you Alt and Shift, and then click dragging over. Okay, I'll let go. It doesn't really matter. The gap here, we're going to fix that in a minute. So we also need to do that 2 more times so that we have 4 days over here. So I'm going to come over to Edit, Step and Repeat 2 times, and click OK. So now, as you can see, we are a little too far over. We are over our margin here. So we're going to select all by dragging a box over. Then we are going to click on the farthest to the left to make it the key object. And then we were going to come over to our properties panel and our distribute spacing. And let's start with 0.04. And we are going to do distribute horizontally. And that's a little too close. So let's go up to 7 and maybe 8. So you just play around with it until you get something close. I mean, honestly, I think 8 is fine. It's got a little gap there, but you can always just move it over. But that's good to me, or you can bump it up to 9. So we are now distributed evenly, so all we need to do is we need to copy 3 over here. So just drag a box over 3 to select them, hold Alt, hold Shift, click and drag over until you're lined up with the margin there. And that's it. Look, simple as that. We have all of our hourly columns here. Now what we need to do is we want to add the days up top. We're going to do that with a text box. I like to make the text box the same width as the row underneath. Let's say 1 Monday, and I'm going to go ahead. We want it centered. You can adjust the size, the font to however you like. In a previous video, we have created paragraph styles. So I'm going to use those for our weekly layout days. Let's look at it now. I might want to bring it down just like a little bit. A little bit. I don't think it needs to be that high. Okay. And now I can hold Alt and Shift and click drag it over to make a copy. I'm going to do that again. Just it's telling me center, you know. Now I can grab all 3 and do the same. Click, hold, and drag over because everything is lined up evenly. So that should be fine. And then I'm going to click, hold, drag 1 over here. And now all you need to do is change to Tuesday. Okay, now we have all of our days in there. The only thing left to do is to create our calendar, and then we're going to add some notes lines over here. If you have been following with the series, we have created these calendars a few times, so feel free to go ahead and skip over this if you would like. But make sure you don't skip all the way over to hourly too, because I'm going to show you how you can create different types of variations here for your planner. So to create the mini calendar, we are going to create a table 7 by 7. 7 by 7. We are going to make it roughly 1.5 by 1.7. That's typically what I go with. This is close enough. You are going to select the entire table, and we are going to get rid of all of our strokes. So you want to have all of these lines selected in our strokes panel here. Make sure they're all lit up blue, and then we are going to change this to 0. Next, we are going to add in our weekday headers. I am going to go ahead and apply the paragraph style that we've created for this, which is mini calendar headers. If you have not been following along and haven't created it, then again, go ahead, choose a font. I believe we end up going with around 7 point. Fits in there pretty well. So start around there, and then if you want to make it bigger or smaller, you can. And we want this centered, and then we also want it centered vertically. So you're going to, with the row highlighted, right click, cell options, text, and then we are going to change vertical justification to centered. So now you should be ready to go ahead and add in Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. All right, so that's our weekday headers. Now we need to do our days. So highlight all of the days. Again, we have a paragraph style for that. If not, go ahead. I would start with the 7-point as well. The other difference between the header that we have here is we have that in a bold font versus the days we don't, to help that stand out a little bit more if that's something you want to do as well. So, mini calendar dates. We want it centered here. Again, we want to right click cell options text to make sure its vertical justification is center. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this font down because if I don't, you're not going to be able to see everything. I'm going to go ahead this time and start with Friday as the 1st for January because I want you to see what how the numbers may show up in that bottom row, what it's there for. So, okay, I have a little bit of a gap here. So I'm going to probably make this table just a little bit bigger to see if those, there we go, if the numbers will show up. That way I don't have to make this text any smaller. Okay, there we go. Now you see for a month that has 31 days in it, if the month starts on Friday or Saturday, you're going to end up with something in the last row. So that's why you always want to make sure you have 6 rows for the weeks. Now the last thing we need to do here is to go ahead and create our little header here for the month of the year. And again, I have a paragraph style for that, mini calendar month. Although I think this is a little big. I believe I did make it the text a little bit smaller last time. So let's go ahead and make this smaller. And I know I've said this before, but just in case, I'm just typing in random dates on here. This does not mean that that's January 2025's month. So please don't just copy what I'm doing here as far as the actual dates are concerned. So now that I have that, I am going to do what I usually do, and that is to add a stroke to the top and the bottom just to help separate it a little bit more. So with that column highlighted, get rid of the vertical lines and leave only the top and bottom horizontal. I'm going to do 1 point and I am going to do peach. All right, that's pretty good. I think I want to bring this down just like a little bit. I'm going to line it up here with the other months. Okay. Now the only thing left to do here is to add lines. So again, we're going to do this by creating a table. And we are going to make this, let's do 20 rows by 1 column. Okay, I'm going to drag it out here. I like to have a gap. I don't want to have it against. Okay, so select the entire table. Come over to our cell styles. We're going to use our lines style that we created in episode 5. And that's going to give us thin lines and horizontal lines and no vertical lines. And then I'm going to now adjust the height. So select the table again, right click, cell options, rows and columns. And I'm going to make this 7 millimeter. And I might add a couple more rows here. Let's add 1 more row. So I'm to add another row, I'm gonna first expand this box a little bit so that it stays in the frame, and then click in the bottom box, just hit tab, and it will create another line for you. And then you can go ahead and adjust however you want to adjust here. If I want to come all the way to the bottom to leave a little gap there, that's good. I like that. And that's it. That's our first hourly. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to show you some different options for strokes over here that you might want to consider. The first one I'm going to show you here. So to make this easy, you're going to select the entire table. And then we're going to right click and come to table options. And you're going to come to alternating row strokes. So the second one down. Here you'll be able to very quickly and easily create alternating strokes. Sometimes you're going to see because this is 7 a.m., this is 7:30. Maybe you want a different line in between because these are both part of 7. It helps the user of the planner sometimes. So let's say you want to do that. Let's say you want to do every other row like that so that your 30 minutes are not solid lines. When you come in here, alternating patterns, you're just going to choose every other row. And I'm going to show you a few examples here. So the first one we are going to do is a dotted. And so now we're saying every other row. So first row is only one row. Let's go ahead with 1 point here. And then here's where we're going to change our type. Let's change it to dotted. Now, as long as you have this preview selected, you should see it over here because that's the one we have selected. You can see that there's dots. If you want those dots to be a little bit bigger, you can bring the point up a little bit so that they're a little bigger. You can see them a little bigger, although they don't really look like they're getting bigger, do they? Maybe we want to do 2 points. You could see it a little bit better over there. And we want to go ahead and keep this, we want to change our 70% black. There we go. And we want to keep this solid to 0.5 is what our typical, we use 0.5, and then solid, and then 70%. Okay, so now when you look at it, you're going to see we have a solid line, and then you have a dotted line separating 8 a.m. or 8 between 8 and 8:30. Again, it just kind of, it makes it a little clearer to see, like, this is our 9 a.m. slot. This is our 8 a.m. slot. Let's try a different one for this one. Again, I am going to right click with the column highlighted, table options, and then alternating rows. We're going to do every other row. Let's see what a dashed one looks like. Let's do this one in half a point. Let's select dashed. We're going to do our 70%. Come over here. We have a half. We have solids, fine. And then our 70 black. Let's see what that looks like. Very, very similar to the dot, just a little easier to see, I guess, than the dotted one. Okay, and so the last option here I wanted to show you, because obviously you can see you can make these any kind of stroke you want. And one other thing that you may want to do, let's just come over to this last one, is you can just get rid of all your vertical. Like, get rid of the box around it. So it is in a frame. You can't really remove it from the frame, but you can turn off the stroke of the frame. So just click on the box. Don't double click to get into the table. Just click on the object, because that way you're just selecting the frame, and then just turn the stroke off. And now you have you don't have the stroke around the outside, and now you're left with just the lines, which is actually kind of nice. It's actually nice and clean. I kind of like that clean look. But those are some options that you can do for this hourly. Now let's go ahead and jump into our hourly 2. We're going to come over here. We're going to hit the plus. We are going to rename this hourly 2. Hourly 2. All right, let's hit W so we can get our lines again. To get us started, I'm going to go ahead and copy the lines and the calendar over because we don't need to do those again. So select all, copy, Command C to copy, or Control C, and then come back here, and we are going to edit, paste in place, so it puts it right where we had it on the other page. Okay, so now that that's pasted there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a table. We're going to come up to table, create table, and this table we want to be 29 rows by 4 columns. So I'm going to say okay, and then it is not going to take the whole height, but I'm just going to I'm more concerned with the width. So I want to fill in this space. So let's just fill in this space for now. We are going to select the entire table. We are going to make all of the lines 0.5, 70%. And it helps if you have all of the lines up here selected. So let's try that again. Make sure all your lines are selected. 0.5, 70%. There we go. Okay, so we need to add our times in here. So let's select this first column. We are going to do an 8-point font. I'm going to use my Adorn Roman, but use whatever you've been using. We are going to make sure it's 70% black. We want it left aligned, but we also want it aligned to bottom. Actually, you know what? Let's do this one centered. So we're going to right click. We're going to come to Cell Options Text, and we're going to justify center here. Okay, now all we need to do is type our numbers in. So let's type those in, and I'll be right back. Okay, so the one other thing I wanted to do that we forgot to do, so let's select the whole table and we need to adjust the cell heights. So right click, cell options, rows and columns, and I am going to do this my 7mm. And hopefully, yes, that should give us some room at the top because we're going to need to add our weekdays in there. So go ahead and we'll bring this to the bottom. And that looks good. Now, the last thing we need to do is adjust, not the last thing, but the next thing we need to do is we need to adjust this column here. We don't need this to be so large, so double click in here, get to our double-sided arrow. We're gonna hold shift and we're gonna drag the line over until we are close to our widest time, which looks to be 10 a.m. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to, well, now we need to make these all even. So you're going to hold your mouse up at the top until you get that down arrow, and then click, hold, and drag over to highlight all of those columns. Now all you need to do is hit right click, and we are going to justify columns evenly, and it's going to justify the selected columns evenly. Now we can go ahead and we can add some weekdays up top, or let's use our text box and let's add them. You don't have to do them this way. You can have the extra column up top if you want, but this is the way I choose to do it. So let's say 1 Monday. I don't want this cap anymore, so let's just do this 1 Monday. And I'm going to use my paragraph style that was created in a previous video, but you can select whatever font and size that looks good to you. Of course, you want it to be centered. And do I like it that high? I think that's fine. All right, so now that I have what I think looks good, I'm going to hold Option and Shift, click, and I'm going to drag it over to make a copy. And I'm going to do that one more time. Okay, so if you want, change this to Tuesday. Change this to Wednesday. Okay. All right, looking good. So the next thing we're going to do is add some alternating row fills. So let's click in this box. Let's select the entire table and let's right click table options, and we are going to come to alternating fills this time. And this is going to allow you to fill alternating rows without having to manually go in and do it. So we're going to come down to this drop and say every other row. You can see there's other options here. You can try out other options if you want, but we're just going to do every other row. And we are going to say 1 row. We are going to change this color. We are going to change it to our peach color. Let's see our preview here. Oh, it's not really showing it. We have a 20% tint right now. I say go ahead and leave that. If we want to change it, we can go back in and change it. And then our other rows are going to have none. So you could just leave this as is and go ahead and hit OK, because unfortunately you can't see it until it's not highlighted anymore. And there we go. We have alternating rows filled with color. Again, you want to keep it light enough that you could still write in there, but it makes it look a little bit nicer. Now there's one other thing that I wanted to do to this before we copy it to the other side. I wanted to make this stroke here a dotted stroke. So I want to show you what will happen if you try to apply, say, a dotted stroke to here if you have these fills. If you're not filling the rows, then you don't need to worry about it. You can absolutely just select the different stroke. But let me just show you what I mean, because that's the easiest way to explain it, is to just show you. So we want only this right stroke selected. And we're going to go and let's go ahead and change this to dotted. I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger because the dotted is hard to see. Let's do 2 point. It's hard to see when it's smaller. So, okay, so you get this white here in between the lines. Now, there is a gap color that you could change to here. The problem is that when you change it, it's going to change to all. So it's going to fix here, but now you're going to have pink here. So what you would have to do is you would have to go through and you'd have to change this to pink, change this to white. But it's not even that simple, because when you change these, you will end up, let me show you here. If I fill this and I change this, let's just change it to any color so that you can see what it does. So it now changes like where the dots are, and it makes it a little funky. So it's just complicated and kind of a pain in the butt if you have the fill here. Now again, if you have no fill, it's fine. Go ahead, highlight the whole thing, make the whole thing dotted. Looks great, wonderful. I'm just going to show you the workaround if you wanted to do that for fill, with a fill. So all we're going to do here is we're just going to get rid of that stroke. We're going to just get rid of it altogether. And now we're going to create our own line. All right, so let me zoom out a little bit so we can make it full size. And so I'm going to come over to the line tool over here. I'm going to click on the top and I'm just going to create a line, hold shift to keep it straight up and down. Try to get it as close as you can, but we can always adjust it to the top and bottom. And now you're just going to go ahead and make it what you want. If it's 1 point and you want to change it to dotted, and I want to change it to the gray. And now I don't have to worry about, it's just going to be on top. There's not going to be any issues with the gaps or the lines. I do, however, want to adjust this so that it's not sticking up to there. And then probably on the bottom it's sticking out a little bit. Actually, no, it's fine on the bottom. Okay. So that's the way to get around it. Just add a line, add the dotted stroke to the line, and you're all set. Okay, kind of a long explanation, but we got there. All right, so now all I need to do is I need to copy this to the other side. So I'm going to select the entire table here, hold Option, hold Shift, click and drag over. I'm going to line this up with this side because I need to add an extra column. So let's go ahead, click in our table, select this column. We are going to right click, insert column, and we want to insert one row to the right. And it should insert it the exact same. And now we just need to drag this over, and then of course switch all our days, which I'm not going to bother doing right now. And that's it. We have you have a little bit of a gap here, so if you want to group all this together and then make sure you're aligned to margins, and then just hit center, and then it will just align it in the page, which is probably what I would do. Because it's not the exact right width. I would, you could always resize it, but I wouldn't. I think it's better to keep it the same size as the other columns. And that's it. That's what we have for our horizontal hourly 2. It actually does look quite different than the first one. So now I just really wanted to show you one version of the doggy theme today. So let's go over to our doggy theme. I'm not going to do anything crazy for the doggy theme. I'm not going to do anything you haven't actually seen multiple times now, but we're going to go ahead and base it off of our hourly 1. Okay, so let's come over to our doggy theme. Let's hit the plus to create a new spread. Right click. We're going to call this one hourly. Hit OK. And now I'm going to go back to the other one. I'm just going to copy and paste this whole thing. So Command C or Control C to copy, and then I'm going to go paste in place. And there we go. Okay, so now that we have this copied and pasted in place, we're just going to make a couple little changes. It's not going to be anything big. So, if you've seen other videos, this is going to be nothing new to you. We're just going to add a couple PNGs to the background. Let's see, what do we have here? We're going to add a little house, a little doggy house. So as I place the image, if I want to center it in this table, table, but the calendar, I'm just going to select both, select the calendar again to make it the key object, and then I'm just going to center it. Just going to center it that way. And now I'm going to go ahead and send it to the back. So select the picture again, right click, arrange, send to back. And now the last thing to do is bring down the opacity, which is up here in the top toolbar. And we're going to just bring down the opacity so we can see our numbers, and our doggy house is just kind of in the background. And the only other thing I really want to add here was some doggy prints, because I think that that's pretty cute. So we are going to add a PNG of a doggy print. And I'm going to make it look like the doggy walked over to the his little house. So, all right, so we have one here. I'm going to hold Option and Shift and click and drag up. Actually, I don't need Shift. We're just going to drag up. And now I'm going to select both of these, and I'm going to do the same, Option and drag up. This time I'm going to use Shift and drag up. And then let's go ahead and just duplicate the same thing. There we go. So what we can do to easily, we got to send these to the back and bring the opacity down. So I'm just going to go ahead and group all these together. So I'm going to click, I'm going to hold Shift and then click the rest while I'm holding Shift to select all. Then I'm going to do Command G or Control G to group. And then I'm going to arrange, right click, arrange, send to back. And then we're going to bring down the opacity. So they're just slightly in the background. There we go. That is how you can add a little something, give it a little something extra, and help it to match a theme that you have. You don't have to. I hope you're figuring out throughout this series that in order to have a theme planner, it doesn't have to be all out crazy images everywhere, crazy colors everywhere. I know you see that a lot, but I do feel like for the most part, and I could be wrong, that people don't like to have too much going on, because a planner is supposed to be functional. And everybody has something different that they need to plan. They have a different type of life. Some have kids, some don't. Some have jobs, some don't. The whole point is that everybody is different, and everybody is going to have a different schedule and different planning needs. The more specific you get in a planner, the less people it's going to work for. So I hope that makes sense. And that's it for today's episode. I hope that you learned something new and were able to come up with some new ideas. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions, or if there is something that I didn't show that you think that you need to know how to do. And in the next episode, we're going to be creating our weekly combo layouts. This is the last of the weekly layouts, so make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification so you don't miss it, because these combo layouts are actually some of my favorites. They, in my opinion, are the most functional weekly layouts. Again, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and I will see you in the next one.